I never thought I'd be that person, the one who gets used by their own relatives, chewed up and spit out all while smiling and handing over my hard-earned money like a fool. But I was for years, and I never questioned it until the night my cousin Kendra accidentally added me to a line group call. It was late, around 11 p.m., and I had just finished a brutal 12-hour shift at the hospital. My phone buzzed with a notification. Kendra added you to a group call flashed on the screen. Weird, she never included me in their family chats this late. I tapped to join, exhausted. Hello? But there was no response, just muffled voices, laughter, and the distinct sound of wine glasses clinking. An online family hangout. My relatives didn't usually invite me to those. In fact, they didn't invite me to much of anything. I almost left the call until I heard my name. God, can you believe Beatrice still thinks she's helping us? That was my aunt, Linda's voice, sharp, amused, dripping with condescension. Kendra snorted. She acts like some kind of saint, like we'd be homeless without her nurse salary. More laughter. Well, technically we would, my cousin Dylan chimed in, but that's what family does, right? She owes us. She doesn't have kids, no husband, nothing. What else is she going to do with all that night shift money, he said. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Owes them? Oh please, my aunt scoffed. She doesn't pay out of the kindness of her heart. She pays because grandma would have wanted it. What else was she going to do, let her family struggle? She said it like the very idea was disgusting. That's why we should ask for more, Kendra said casually. Nurses make bank, especially with all those overtime hours. She can afford it, Kendra said. Dylan let out a low whistle. Nice apartment, reliable car, probably has a decent savings account. She's doing fine. Meanwhile, we're here scraping by for basic stuff, he said. Exactly, Kendra huffed. She's so selfish. If she really cared about family, she'd cover more than just our rent, like groceries, utilities, maybe help with my Instagram business expenses, Kendra said. I felt my stomach turn. My monthly transfers weren't covering their necessities only. They were funding their lifestyle, their entitlement. I wanted to leave the call. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. I sat there, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached, listening as my entire extended family, people I had sacrificed so much for, tore me apart like I was nothing more than a paycheck. Linda sighed dramatically. I mean, what else can she do? Stop helping family? Huh, she's not that heartless. Laughter erupted through my earphones. I clenched my jaw, my blood boiling. They thought I was trapped. They thought I needed their approval. They thought I'd never, ever cut them off. They had no idea what was coming. I sat there, phone still connected to the group call, my heartbeat pounding in my skull like a war drum. The conversation was still going. They hadn't realized I was there. They had no idea I was listening to every word. Kendra let out a sharp laugh, the kind that always made me feel like I was the punchline of a joke I didn't understand. God, you remember when she actually thought she could say no that one time? Dylan snorted. Oh, what was it, like 2 years ago? She tried to set boundaries or some crap about financial responsibility. Linda made a noise of pure amusement. And look how fast she folded. One little guilt trip about family loyalty and she was begging to help again, Linda said. Kendra sighed dramatically. She's too soft, too afraid of being the bad guy. That's why we always win. Something inside me twisted, hard and violent. This wasn't family helping each other out. This was a game to them, a power trip they were playing with me, laughing behind my back while I bled myself dry for them. Dylan's voice turned smug. She's so predictable. She thinks if she just keeps sending money, we'll appreciate her. Like, sure, okay, thanks for covering our expenses, but that doesn't mean we actually like hanging out with her. I didn't realize I was gripping my phone so hard until my fingers started to cramp. Kendra's voice turned syrupy. I mean, she could be more fun, you know? Like, we're family, but no, she's all work, work, work. No social life, no hobbies, just nursing shifts and money transfers. Linda hummed in agreement. At least she's useful for something. Those night shift differentials really add up, Linda said. That was it. That was the moment something in me snapped. But I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I kept my grip on the phone, held my tongue, and listened, because if they thought I was weak, if they thought I was predictable, then I'd give them exactly what they expected. For now, anyway. Linda continued, her voice turning breezy. We need to have a talk with her soon. The property management company is raising our rent next month. She'll have to cover the difference. Dylan groaned. Ugh. She's going to make that face again, the one where she pretends to be struggling. Like, oh no. Nurses don't make that much. His voice pitched into a mock whine. Kendra cackled. She can afford it. Those hospital paychecks are fat. She just doesn't want to share. Exactly, Linda's voice hardened. She needs to understand we have needs too. The business isn't doing well right now, Linda said. Needs. Needs. They weren't talking about food, electricity, medical bills. No, they were talking about Kendra's nail appointments, Linda's failing cosmetics business, Dylan's gaming equipment. Kendra clicked her tongue. You know, she's been really slow with transfers lately. Maybe we should start reminding her earlier in the month. Dylan laughed. Let's do that. Maybe even throw in a little family emergency story for extra effect. Oh, and Linda, Kendra added, you should do that crying thing again. It works every time. My aunt chuckled, and I felt something cold, visceral coil in my stomach. Of course, sweetheart. I know exactly what buttons to push. I sat in silence, staring at my apartment floor, my entire world tilting under me. They were proud of it. Of manipulating me. Of draining me dry and then mocking me behind my back. And they thought they could keep doing it. They thought I'd never stop. I swallowed, forcing my voice to stay even, calm. Then, finally, I spoke. Hello? The call went dead silent. The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at my phone, the line call screen now showing the call ended, my thumb hovering over the call log as if I needed proof it had actually happened. They ended the call the second they heard my voice. Not a single word. No excuse, no cover-up, no nothing. Just silence, then disconnection. I imagined them all sitting in their respective homes, their laughter choking in their throats as the reality sank in. I heard everything. And yet, my phone stayed silent. No frantic message from Kendra. No fake apology from Linda. No hastily typed out excuses from Dylan. Nothing. Because they weren't sorry. They were just caught. I took a slow, deep breath, my hands shaking as I set my phone down on my coffee table. My mind was racing, replaying every word, every smug little jab, every way they had picked me apart like I was nothing more than a walking paycheck. But I didn't cry. Not this time. I sat there, perfectly still, my fingers tapping against the table as a plan started to form. They thought they had me figured out. They thought I'd stay quiet, pretend nothing happened, keep transferring money like a good little ATM. But they had no idea. I could already picture it, their faces when the next rent payment didn't arrive. The panic. The outrage. The audacity they'd have to act like I was the one betraying family. But not yet. I wasn't going to cut them off immediately. No, that would be too easy, too predictable. If they wanted to believe I was weak, if they thought they still had control over me, then I'd let them think that. For now. I picked up my phone, opening our family group chat. It was mostly them asking for money in different ways. Linda's business emergency of the month. Kendra's sudden rent shortage. Dylan's car trouble that never seemed to end. I typed out a simple message, hey, sorry my phone glitched and dropped the call. Everything okay? I hit send. Seconds later, the typing indicator appeared. Kendra texted, oh, just bad connection. We weren't even talking about anything important. Liar. I stared at the screen, watching the dots flicker as she hesitated, probably wondering if I had heard anything, if I knew. Kendra texted, anyway, Linda wanted to talk to you soon. Maybe this weekend? I smiled. There it was. The setup. They were already laying the groundwork for their next financial demand. I cracked my knuckles, my pulse steady, my mind clear. This weekend? Fine. I'd play along. And when the time was right, when they were at their most desperate, when the rent was due, I'd pull the rug out from under them so hard they wouldn't know what hit them. Let's see how they handled life without their little nurse bankroll supporting their lifestyle. The weekend came faster than I expected. I spent the next few days going through the motions, answering their messages like nothing had changed, letting them believe I was still oblivious. Kendra texted me the most, sending casual updates about her stressful life such as her new gel nails, a shopping haul from Target, a brunch at some trendy cafe downtown. Dylan mostly stuck to short messages, acting like we were close cousins, just in case he needed to ask for something later. And Linda, she played her role perfectly. Hey, sweetie, hope you're recovering from those long shifts. Just wanted to check in. Love you. The kind of message that used to make me feel guilty for even thinking of saying no to them. But now it was just part of their manipulation playbook. They were so predictable it almost made me laugh. Saturday finally rolled around, and I made my way over to Linda's condo. Or more accurately, the place I had been covering the mortgage payments for. The moment I pulled into the visitor parking, I felt it, the twisted mix of nerves and excitement coiling in my chest. I wasn't here to fight. Not yet. I was here to watch, to see how they planned to manipulate me this time. I knocked twice before entering, something they expected from me, something that made them feel like I was still part of this little toxic web of relatives. The smell of expensive diffuser oils and DoorDash containers filled the air. Linda was sitting on her sectional couch, wrapped in some designer throw blanket, a mug of herbal tea in her hands like she was preparing for a serious family discussion. Kendra lounged across from her, lazily scrolling through Instagram on her phone. And Dylan sat at the kitchen island, munching on what looked like expensive sushi for someone who claimed to be broke. They have no idea. Linda looked up, giving me the kind of warm smile that used to make me feel loved, the same smile she probably practiced before every financial guilt trip. There you are, sweetie, she said, voice soft. We were just talking about you. I bet you were. I smiled back, keeping my expression easy, relaxed. What about? I asked. Linda sighed dramatically, setting her tea down on the glass coffee table. Well, you know how much we appreciate everything you do for this family. You've been such a blessing, helping out with our housing situation and all, she said. Here it comes. Kendra chimed in, her tone carefully casual. We were actually just talking about how much the property management company is raising everyone's fees lately. It's insane. Dylan let out a low whistle. Crazy expensive. Like, I don't even know how regular people are supposed to afford living anymore. Linda nodded, her eyes wide with exaggerated concern. And well, we wanted to talk to you about that. They're increasing our monthly payment again. It's really significant this time. I tilted my head, pretending to be surprised. Wow, by how much? I asked. Linda hesitated, just for a second. About $400 more a month. Kendra immediately jumped in. Which, you know, isn't terrible in the grand scheme of things, but with all our other expenses, it's just overwhelming. You know, we're barely making ends meet. Dylan sighed, running a hand through his hair. And we really hate to ask, but, he said. There it is. The ask. The moment where they expected me to smile, nod, and say, of course I'll help family. I leaned back in the armchair, pretending to think it over, like I was actually weighing my options. Let them squirm. Linda leaned forward, her voice soft, full of practiced concern. Sweetie, we wouldn't ask if we weren't really struggling financially, she said. Kendra sighed dramatically. Like, I've had to cut back on so many things already, she added. Cut back. She had just posted Instagram stories about her new lash extensions yesterday. Dylan shook his head, playing the role of the stressed-out cousin. We're just lucky to have you, you know? Not everyone has a family member who cares this much about keeping everyone housed. I could barely keep the amusement off my face. They're laying it on so thick. Linda reached out, placing her hand on mine, her voice dipping into that maternal tone she always used to guilt-trip me. So, sweetie, can you cover the increase? Just until we get back on our feet financially? She asked. I let the silence stretch. The air felt thick, the weight of their expectations pressing down on me like a heavy blanket. They thought they had me. Thought I'd fold just like every other time. I met my aunt's eyes, smiling. Of course, I said. Relief flooded her face so quickly she almost gasped. Oh my God, you're the best, Kendra grinned. Dylan clapped me on the shoulder. Knew we could count on you. I smiled, nodding along, playing the role they expected. Because they had no idea. No idea that in just a few weeks, when the payment was actually due, they'd wake up to a notice from the property management company instead of my bank transfer. I wasn't helping them anymore. I was about to watch their whole comfortable lifestyle collapse. And I couldn't wait. The days after that conversation were like a game of waiting. Every time they texted me, I smiled, laughed at their jokes, and sent a few meaningless responses to keep the act going. They had no idea what I was planning. I kept my distance, careful to avoid making it seem like I was pulling away too quickly. They'd just accuse me of being distant, of changing, and I wasn't about to give them any ammunition. Each day, I went through the motions, pretending like nothing had shifted in my head, even though everything inside me was screaming to cut them off already. I wanted to do it right away, but I had to make sure I was in complete control. This wasn't just about getting back at them. It was about teaching them a lesson they'd never forget. They still expected me to be there when they needed me. They still expected me to be their safety net, the one they could count on when their lifestyle choices caught up with them. The truth was, they could have easily afforded their expenses without my help. They were just so used to living beyond their means that they thought they were entitled to everything I'd been giving them. They didn't need my money. They wanted it. And that was the line I'd finally drawn in the sand. It was only a week before the next payment was due when I got the call. I was sitting at my kitchen table, scrolling through some hospital scheduling emails, when my phone buzzed. The caller ID made my stomach tighten. Linda. I hesitated for a second, pretending I didn't know exactly what this was about. Hey, Linda, I answered, trying to keep my voice neutral, even though my heart was pounding. Oh, thank God you picked up, she said, her voice tight. Sweetie, we're in a bit of a jam here, she said. Here it comes. What's going on? I asked, my tone calm, like I had all the time in the world to listen to whatever excuse she was about to give me. Well, you know how we were talking about the payment increase? She started, clearly rehearsing what she was about to say. Well, the property management company is being really unreasonable. They're insisting on the full increase, and we're really struggling here. I already knew where this was going. We're just asking for a little bit of help, she continued, the fake sweetness back in her voice. Just to get us over the hump this month, and then we'll figure things out, okay? She said. I could hear the desperation in her tone. She knew she couldn't manipulate me as easily anymore. I stayed silent, letting the tension build. She couldn't possibly believe I'd just roll over and give them another month of my nursing salary, could she? Did she really think I hadn't noticed how their spending had spiraled out of control? So, what do you think, sweetie? She asked, her voice a little too hopeful. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I let out a slow breath, trying to sound casual. I think you're more than capable of handling this on your own. She was silent for a moment, as if trying to process what I had just said. I could practically hear her brain working overtime, trying to figure out how to fix this. You know I can't just let you guys lose your home, right? I continued, keeping my voice calm. You've got money for things like Kendra's beauty treatments, your business inventory, Dylan's gaming setup, but you can't seem to save for basic housing costs. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Then, slowly, she spoke. Sweetie, we don't have that kind of money right now. You know it's not that simple. We're really struggling financially. I kept my voice steady, but the anger was rising. It's only not that simple because you've been living beyond your means for years, Linda. You've been using me as a financial crutch, and I've had enough, I said. You know that's not true, she said, her voice tightening, trying to cling to the lie. Family helps family. You know we've always been there for you, haven't we? She said. I let that one sit for a moment. You've always been there when it was convenient for you. But now I'm done being your personal bank. It's time to figure things out on your own. Linda's voice shifted, the facade cracking. Sweetie, please, we can't. I've already made up my mind, I interrupted, my voice cold. I won't be making this month's payment. You'll have to figure it out. Good luck. I hung up before she could respond. I sat there in the stillness, my heart racing. It wasn't a feeling of guilt, though. It was more like the moment before a thunderstorm, when the air is thick with tension and you know something big is coming. I knew they wouldn't take this well. Hell, I was practically daring them to react. But I also knew they had no other option but to beg. That's when the real fun would begin. Over the next few days, my phone was bombarded with messages. Texts from Linda, calls from Marcus, even Kendra, who normally didn't get involved in family financial drama, had a message waiting for me. Can you please talk? We really need to sort this out. I didn't respond to any of them. In fact, I turned my phone on Do Not Disturb mode and avoided all of it. The longer I could keep them in the dark about the fact that I knew what they'd been saying, the better. I could feel their desperation starting to seep through, and I let it marinate. The day the payment was due came, and sure enough, the calls started up again. First it was Linda, then Marcus, and finally Kendra. Each call had a slightly more frantic tone than the last, but I didn't budge. It was around noon when I finally decided it was time for the confrontation. I was sitting at my kitchen table, sipping coffee between my shifts, when I saw a text from Kendra pop up. We really don't have anyone else to turn to. Please, just this one time. I didn't even give it a second thought. I picked up my phone and dialed her number. She answered almost immediately. Oh my God, thank you for picking up, she sounded relieved, like she'd been holding her breath. We're in deep trouble. The property management company said if they don't get the full payment in by tomorrow, they're going to start the eviction process. You know we can't afford this on our own. Please, just help us out this one time. I let her ramble on, her voice getting more and more desperate with every word. The guilt was supposed to start creeping in, but all I felt was a strange sense of satisfaction. I'd played this game for too long, letting them take advantage of me, and now it was time for the tables to turn. Finally, I cut her off. You really don't get it, do you? I said. There was a long pause on the other end. What do you mean? She asked. I heard everything, I said, my voice cold. I heard the group call. I heard all of you laughing at how you've been using me as your personal bank for years. She owes us, you said. Just a walking paycheck, right? Her silence was deafening. I could almost hear her brain trying to process what I had just said. Do you think I didn't know? I continued, my voice getting sharper. Do you think I didn't realize how you've been living way beyond your means, all while depending on me to bail you out? You think I'm stupid? That I wouldn't notice how you buy designer things, go to expensive salons, order DoorDash every night while I'm over here working 12-hour shifts to cover your bills every damn month? But we needed your help, she finally said, her voice cracking. We couldn't have made it without you, she said. Well, maybe you should have thought about that before you spent every penny you had on things you didn't need, I shot back. You don't need me. You just wanted me to keep sending money, and I'm done with it. I'm done being your ATM, I said. I could hear her trying to find words, but nothing came. She had no defense. She was trapped in the very web she'd spun. Then, just when I thought the conversation was over, I heard Linda's voice in the background, yelling at her to get me to help them and not let me off the hook. That's when I decided it was time to make my grand exit. You know what? I said, my voice steady. I'm done. I'm cutting you all off. No more money transfers, no more bailouts, no more being your financial punching bag. If you want to live like this, you'll have to figure it out on your own. Good luck though, because once you've spent every penny you've ever earned on luxuries, you're going to have a hard time living in the real world. I ended the call before she could respond, turning my phone off completely. Months passed, and I didn't hear a word from my relatives. I wasn't surprised. They were too proud to admit they'd messed up. But then one day, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Kendra with a simple line, "Payments due again." I didn't respond immediately. I knew what they wanted. Money. But that wasn't going to happen. A few days later, I got another text from Linda, "Can you please just help us this one time? We're really struggling financially." Then Marcus tried calling, but I let it go to voicemail. They weren't asking for a second chance or an apology. They just needed me to be their financial safety net again. I kept ignoring them. I was done. Their arrogance and entitlement had left a bitter taste in my mouth, and no amount of begging would change that. The truth was, they never changed. They were just too used to being taken care of, and when I stopped enabling them, they were forced to face the consequences of their choices. The property management company didn't wait, and eventually, they lost their place. I wasn't there to pick up the pieces, and they didn't get a penny from me. It wasn't pretty, but it was exactly what they needed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a dramatic showdown. It's just walking away and letting them realize they can't rely on you anymore. And they never did come back.